Hello, love.
Hello.
Oh, you look like it's summertime.
It feels like summertime.
Is it? Is it warm there?
It's like 10 degrees, I think, but I feel in that kind of spring summer mood for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're just here too. It's probably around 12 degrees or so. So it's,
Yeah.
For those that are in the US, I have no idea what that is Fahrenheit. So I apologize. You have to convert it yourself. But
Can I just say I love how we're both wearing like black and we're not wearing any green right now?
oh, it's like, yeah, I know it is. Okay, so we're recording this on St. Patty's Day. Yes, I see your green pillow. Kind of shirt. No, I'm wearing a purple shirt. Sorry.
All good. It's all good.
Sorry, Irish friends. Ooh,
Yes.
ish.
I was just going to say that our mug is very greenish, which is perfect.
Let's go with that.
Cheers.
Okay, I've got something very different in my mug today.
Mm.
Can you see the color?
Is it carrot juice?
It's tomato soup.
Tomato soup? Oh, it's your lunch. I love it.
It's part of my lunch.
It's a getting juicy luncheon.
Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what? I'll just drink it. I didn't have time.
Exactly. When in doubt, drink it like a tomato soup.
I was trying to rhyme that.
Soup it out.
Sure.
When in doubt, soup it out.
Perfect. I love it.
I love it. Look at our day brains going.
Yeah, because we're actually recording this midday, which is not typical for us. So, of course, I was saying to Hero, like my brain's in work mode right now. So I'm trying to forget about writing ad copy for, dynamic search campaigns on Google. Fuck are you talking about? We will have an introduction and talk about our guest that's coming on momentarily here. I love her last name.
Arora.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It is so gorgeous. Could you ask for a better last name?
Her entire name is beautiful. Nira
Arora.
Arora.
So now let's switch it around. Nira
Arora.
Thank you. Good start. Okay, right on.
She is no stranger to kind of what we're doing because she does this for a living, not a podcast, but she is a radio I was almost going to say a radio talk show host. She's a radio personality. Mm-hmm. So she's a DJ and
a journalist.
A journalist, absolutely, for specifically for Virgin Radio, which we had one of her co-hosts on not that long ago, Johnny Staub.
Yeah. So
now we've got Niro. Oh my goodness, Nira coming on. Sorry, Nira.
It's because my name's Hero. So Nira, if you're listening to this, because it's like Hira. See, now I did a Hira. It's like subliminal, like Hero and Nira. Hira, Nero.
Confusing. So in any case, now this is what I have to remember. Is it still called The Beat?
No, it's not. It's Virgin.
It is Virgin. Okay.
It is Virgin. Yeah, it's confusing a little bit for sure.
Because I was reading her bio on Virgin,
yes,
where it said The Beat in her.
It did.
Bio. So then
it does say The Beat in her bio.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if they maybe haven't updated it for a little while.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. We can ask about that.
But she has a very colorful, beautiful background.
Very much so. So beautiful. Initially coming from Nanaimo, being an island girl, and then going to initially be a lawyer, and then being an SFU and BCIT, if I read correctly, and then ending up going into being in production and like a production assistance from theater to TV, from CTV. It's pretty amazing.
And almost like from what I read, almost like stumbled upon it. Like someone stumbled upon her, so to speak.
Yes. Someone asked her if she would be willing to provide some segments for a show that was happening at, I think it was at SFU, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, now I can't recall. We'll have to ask her all those details. But it's just one of those things like, right time, right place, maybe. And then it's like, oh, maybe my, destiny is not quite what I thought it was. And and totally switching gears. So it's very going from wanting to be a lawyer to, I wonder if that was like influenced by her family at all.
I don't know. We could ask. I mean, for sure. I love the fact that we can chat with lots of different people in our show and our platform, that we can talk to all different types of cultures and ancestries and just backgrounds in general, right?
Yeah.
And especially from a South Asia background, and in Vancouver, like in BC, we have such a prominent South Asian community. And so to be able to hear perspectives and insights from someone of that background that works in the public media, that works in the social eye, that's really, really cool. Like I feel really humbled and appreciative that we can have some time with Nira to talk to her about many things, including that.
Well, and again, and just someone else that builds and creates this gorgeous patchwork of, cultural diversity in specifically in Canada. Just so it's just lovely because so many. And here she is.
There she is. I love it. Perfectly timed. And look at her lips. Yes, queen.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Nira. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on to our podcast.
Aw, thanks for having me.
Of course. We were just introducing you a little bit.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hey, your skin, I'm like in awe of right now. like look at I thought that what's, like adult acne and hormonal BS. And so
something's going on.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at you and it's like, oh God, can I just take your picture and bring it into my dermatologist?
Oh, you're so sweet. You know what? I'm having a good day because I've been complaining about the same thing. I'm like, something's going on. I don't know if it's because of the masks that we're now wearing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, maskne is a real thing.
Yes, totally. It's so annoying, right?
I know. And mask for mask has a whole new meaning of the whole term.
Oh, it's so annoying. I'm gonna put you guys
Oh my God. So we were just, so Rachel and I are recording. We usually have a little banter prior to our guests coming on, introducing them as well. And then we also love to have our guests introduce themselves in case we might have missed anything in between. So feel welcome to introduce yourself. Let us know what you want our viewers and listeners to know, and we can take it from there.
Awesome. I don't know whether you guys want to lead me into it, but I was hoping I could mention this fundraiser that I'm doing.
Yes,
that
please.
I'm working on.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So whenever you guys want to, if you guys just want to be like, and I'm working on something really big for the community right now, I would love to maybe somehow get your guys' help to get into that.
Sure. Absolutely. We would love to help you with that and support you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sure.
So so we kind of started with, I was looking at some of your background, and it's so interesting because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like in the very beginning, like go back to the beginnings of Nira and what you're doing now. It was almost like maybe not you stumbled upon it, but somebody stumbled upon it for you. Like you were going to law school and then all of a sudden you had this, and I don't know if you were already interested in media and being a journalist and being, doing what you're doing now, or if it was something that was just unbeknownst to you, is like, oh, okay, like I'm actually good at this.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It kind of smacked me in the face out of nowhere. I always loved the world of drama and acting. I excelled really well in school and academics, but I also excelled amazingly in the acting and drama courses, and I always was involved in all that kind of stuff. And then I remember at a parent-teacher interview, my high school drama teacher told my parents, don't let her pursue this because she's really good. And it's going to take away from her studies, because I was doing well academically too. I was, right? So they're like, it's just such a fickle industry, and who knows where it'll take her. And when I was young, I thought I was going to be like this like Bollywood star when I grew up. So I mean, I always loved singing, dancing, acting. Not that I was good at singing and acting, I'm just saying I loved doing it. And there weren't that many roles when I was growing up, because I grew up on I grew up in Nanaimo on the island, and everything was like, I feel bad saying this. I couldn't be Snow White. Clearly why. I couldn't have the lead role, so I was the ugly stepsister, and things like that happen. And I understand why they happen at that time. Things like that aren't really okay now, but at that time, and then my goal was always to try and steal the show with these secondary characters that I was allowed to have, because for some reason main characters just weren't coming my way. So that's how it kind of happened. And then I was supposed to go to law school. I was doing all the right things in university to make my way there, and then all of a sudden once again, because of my acting skills, I was putting on this production through SFU. It was the multicultural organization that we had set up there. And we put on this really great show, a cultural event. And I was acting in some of the plays, and I was also the MC. And there was this producer from, at that time, one of the multicultural stations, one of the TV shows. He approached me afterwards and was like, can I get your contact information? I'd love for you to, you know, if you're interested, host, report, produce on my TV show. And that's how it kind of started way back in the day when I was really young.
Phenomenal. And can you remember, if you took us back to that moment, that time then that was happening, was there any initial thoughts that went through your brain other than this is happening, this is how I'm feeling? Like, was there any like peak moments like, oh my God, it's happening. Like, this is actually my opportunity.
I was scared because I knew that's not what my parents wanted. First of all, it was the automatic cultural disappoint. Like, oh, what are my parents going to say? But I talked to my parents about it. And, you know, my parents, for like Indian immigrants, they're quite liberal. I was very fortunate for, you know, whatever other immigration dysfunction I may still have from my family. The one thing I do feel very proud to say is they were quite liberal immigrants for what I was allowed to do growing up, and also being able to have this conversation. They're like, you know what, as long as you keep going to school and as long as you get your degree and you're getting good grades, then yeah, if this is what you want to volunteer for and do on the side, then go for it. Because I've always done tons of volunteer work, always, from the very beginning of time.
Yes.
It sounds like that too. You're talking about your fundraiser and stuff like that too. That's, you know, it's interesting because we've talked to a couple of guests now whom similar background to you, and just because of the times, the way it was, like, for example, Jay Rodriguez, who you know, Latino descent, and he was one of the OG Queer Eye guys from way back when, and he was just saying how, you know, he was the only sort of quote unquote ethnic looking Queer Eye on the show. And after that show ended, which was, I think it was like early 2000, so I don't know what time around this for you it was like 90s, 2000. And
yeah, it was like 90, I would say 96-ish.
Yeah. And he was just saying the opportunities for everybody else, they just exploded. And for him, nothing, it just fizzled. And he just feels like, you know, even now, I mean, it really seems to be, because I listen to a lot of his IG lives, and it's a real traumatic point in his life. Like, it sounds like you were actually able to rise above that, and you were able to gain the recognition that you deserve and to kind of move forward. But for some people, it just seems like there's been a real like mark on their lives there where they haven't been able to move forward or move past.
Oh yeah. It's not easy. It's really hard. And I'm not going to discount other people's hard work because I have my story. But from what I remember, I had to hustle and then hustle and hustle. Like, it wasn't just a hustle. It was a triple hustle for me to get somewhere, because I had to constantly prove myself. First of all, being a woman, and secondly, a visible minority. So it was so much extra work to constantly have to prove yourself and prove that you belong in those positions and those roles, right? It's always been like that. Like, a lot of people ask me, like, you know, where do I kind of get that fuel from? I'm like, I think it's just from the very beginning of time. Like, I remember having, you know, racist encounters from the age of 3. So it's been ingrained in me, right? From the very beginning of time, that you gotta push harder. And I always have something to prove. I'm not saying you're asking me to prove it.
Right.
Internally, I have this thing where I'm like, I always have something to prove.
Yep.
Yeah. When you make a really good point about that, Nira, because I mean, for Rachel and myself, as we say to our guests, like, we're grandchildren of Holocaust survivors on both sides. And so it's really fascinating when you look at adversity, perseverance, resilience, tenacity. These are things that are really deeply within us as human beings. And it's an unquestionable zest, in a way, to prove yourself, to show that you are worthy, and then to others that you are worthy of the equality that they might be exhibiting as well. And so that's a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah.
God, we're going deep really quick here. I love it.
It's the times.
No time like the present with everything happening in our society right now, though.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, absolutely. So I know that you've been with, I mean, I know now it's Virgin Radio, but you've been doing your morning show for, do I want to say 11 years? Something like
Oh, you're so sweet. It's way longer than that. Oh yeah. So
God. Sorry.
I always thought I was going to go into television, right? But I did all the right things. I volunteered. I did my interns. I was everyone's, biatch for a very long time to just make my mark and be there at the right time for the right opportunity, right? Like I was a hustler. Like I'll be there. I'll stay 12 hours if I have to, so I can get noticed by the right people, even if it's in the elevator. Like, and you see me, you know what I mean? Like that, you just needed to get the right person to want to talk to you or to notice you. Yeah. And it just didn't work out for some reason. I think like a lot of stuff started changing in the TV industry when I really wanted to get in there. A lot of stuff started kind of getting dictated out of Toronto, where I was kind of working. I was working at VTV at that time. And then once Toronto kind of gets involved, it's really hard to get more local stuff going. And the opportunities kind of cease to exist. And then my brother, who's quite a bit younger than me, he's like, hey, there's this like new radio station that just started, right? And, maybe you should like contact them. I'm like, radio? It was always TV, behind the scenes TV, on screen TV, writing for TV, booking for TV, and producing for TV, and then also writing. I did lots of newspaper work, magazine work, never really thought about radio, sent in my resume, and that was in March of 2002.
Okay.
So yeah, March of 2002. And wow. I ended up getting a call back because of my name. Because this little station was at that time known as the Beat 94.5.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to be different and really be a voice of the community at that time too, a representation of the community. So they're like, this name sounds ethnic. We don't know what she is. Nira Arora. What is she? Can't tell. No, she's something. I'm like, I don't care. I'll take it. If that's what I get, like, it's my name. And if you think you want something ethnic and I'm fitting, it was not offensive. Some people today, when they hear that story, they're like, well, that's offensive. I'm like, you did not see it that way when you wanted in. Yeah. You saw it as, if I can use this finally to my advantage, I'm going to do that.
100%.
Yeah. So I was auditioning for a couple of weeks. And then at the end of March, they offered me a job. I said yes. And that was, like I said, March of 2002.
Wow.
And then a year and a bit later, I started doing mornings. So I've been doing radio for 19 years almost. And then 18 years of mornings, pretty much. Yes.
You've been getting up at 4:30 for 18 years.
3:45.
Oh,
but even longer. Cause when I worked in TV, I was an intern for the morning show. So I used to also by 4:30 in the morning. So I've been for like 23 years of this like crazy.
Oh my God. And I know that you're a mother of 3 children. So I do know you have that. So
yes.
Do you ever get used to waking up that early?
Mom, perfect. I know.
I'm laughing because bless Hero's heart, and I'm going to throw him under the bus for a second. He is not a morning person. And our interview last week, he was almost late for because he didn't get up. So
I know
it's quite exactly. No. And I couldn't necessarily do either. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So you wake up before your kids, which is funny because normally the kids are the ones that are going to wake up the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And, here was asking, no, you never get used to it. It's not right for your body. Your body's not meant to do it. So no, you don't get used to it. And yeah, I think I've really messed up my system. I always think I'm like, wow, what I would look like if I had sleep. Like if I just was a person who wasn't constantly sleep deprived, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because you just feel different and you look different and you have a glow. It's just when you're rested, so.
Well, you wouldn't be able to tell us any difference with how you look right now. I'm just going to say that right now. Like seriously, you look like you're like an awake beauty.
I was going to say that. Your name is beautiful. And yes, it is unique. Arora that's your actual last name, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Like, absolutely gorgeous. It is. It's interesting because even though you think that those times have changed about, that sounds ethnic, that sounds interesting, we want you on, but still, even with our podcast name getting juicy with the Jew in there, like it really does kind of perk, like, what did you just say? That's fascinating. That's something that I want to, dive into a little bit more. It's, I still think it is kind of a thing, but times have been changing, which is nice.
Yeah.
I like your quote on your wall, by the way, your Dr. C.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which
I kind of do that for my kids, as a little reminder for them.
I love it.
I love that. I love that. And so one thing I was curious about when we were kind of just doing some little research about you, and we can kind of pull it back and forth and kind of go a different timeline, but I was reading in an interview that you had that you actually had a clothing line, or were in the process of trying to have one, Impressions by Aurora?
Yeah. So we were trying to do, what happened was, at that time, pre-COVID, lots of Indian events, and my dad used to travel to India a lot for business. And then when he was there, he would like design all these amazing clothing, and him and I would go back and forth like by email over designs, and he would come back with all this amazing clothing. And then I'd wear it to events, and people would always be like, "Oh my gosh, like what are you wearing?" And I was like, "Oh, like my dad and I kind of put it together." So because of that, we decided to kind of come up with an idea of designing some clothing. But then, it got really difficult because I started having children, and then I was like not able to make those trips. And then my dad also got really busy with work. So then it just was like, okay, if I'm that person, I got to give it all, or it's just not going to happen. Yeah. So we tried. And that was one thing that I guess just wasn't in the cards at that time, but you never know in the future. You never know what could happen, but it's another way of, I feel like, art, for me, makeup and jewelry and outfits and stuff like that was another way for me to express my artistic side, because I cannot draw, I cannot paint. I'm so bad at that stuff, but yeah.
I was gonna say, it's interesting because you're on the radio, people aren't seeing you yet. You're so interested in, the aesthetics of the makeup.
Oh, love it.
And all those kinds of things. So what's your outlet right now then with those modalities? Because
I realized in a weird sort of way that kind of what I do is art too. Just being on the radio and storytelling in itself is an art. And I was always so hard on myself that I'm not artistic, but we're just artistic in different ways. Like that is art too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think the power of what do you do for your career, for your living, is a reflection of your creative artistry. That way you can have additional outlets for sure. But when you are in doubt and you're like, I don't have time for this, how can you put your creative spin on what you do for your living? Like us as yoga teachers, that's a creative outlet. How we write a class, how we talk about a theme, how we sequence a class, how we place our hands on people pre-COVID, if we did adjustments. Like, how do we do that in our own profession? It's the same with radio.
Or like, I was just saying to Hero, or like, I'm in marketing, so I write ad copy for Google ads and those kinds of things. So I'm like, how can I be creative here? What is that? I mean, you have to find all those little tidbits, right? All those types.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Find the meaning.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky too. I mean, you asked earlier, about the hours that I get up, and it's god awful hour, but, I think the reason why I can do it, and I have been doing it for so long, is because I really love what I do. And I really love what I do. And I'm so fortunate. I'm so lucky. And then sometimes when the question about hobbies come up too, it's really strange for me because my work sometimes doesn't feel like work for me.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
I love it and I enjoy it. And I love writing stories. I love looking at different aspects of things and stories that come into my life and how I can spin them and turn them into a story for the show. And, all of that. So it's constantly like, I'm constantly on, my brain is constantly thinking about how can I make this something?
And actually that leads to a question from me about how much control you have as a host on your show. I mean, I know it's your own show. So after this many years, I'm assuming, because you're talking about you write your own content. Is that correct? Awesome.
So we all write our own content. So there's Johnny, and there's Holly, and there's myself, and we're all in charge of our own content. And I'm super proud of being able to bring my own content. And I think that's what makes it even cooler. Yeah, because you're so diverse with what you're bringing to the table, because it's so many different minds who are bringing the content and different perspectives on what you're seeing in your world.
Yeah.
Want to then bring forward, right?
Of course.
Not only that, I mean, so many things now. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I'm questioning like everything I freaking hear and see these days, just with all the stuff that's going on with COVID, with all kinds of things. So, I mean, for you to be able to kind of, choose for yourself what you're putting out there without someone telling you and just having to accept it, that must be very freeing, I would assume.
Yeah, it's really liberating. I mean, there's stuff that, you have to do, that, you're required to do, or, whatever, show wise at sometimes. But besides that, the goal is, how are we looking at what's happening in front of us and making it so that it's original content for our show? Because everybody's reading the same headlines, everybody's reading the same stories, but what approach are we having? What approach are we taking when something like this comes up? I think it was like, I was giving someone the example of, was it the NBA finals last year or something, when it was with the Raptors, and one of the main, I don't know, just because my husband and my boys love watching it, so I'm like, just what I could overhear. There was some athlete that got really injured, and he was sitting on the bench for like the really big moments of the last few minutes of the game. And instead, like the next morning, like all everybody was talking about was, yay, the Raptors, yay, we won the championship. Canada won the championship. But I was wondering, for the person who got injured, what were they thinking while they were sitting on the bench? Were they sitting there and thinking, I want my team to win without me? Or are they thinking, I don't want my team to win without me? Like, what goes through your mind as the injured player sitting on the bench watching your team? Like, what? And so that was of course we said congratulations, but I also took the approach of the player who was injured, which I don't think a lot of people were doing. And I think even our like program director at the time said that was a really interesting choice, because all everybody else was saying is congratulations. Whereas you're like, what about the athlete who was injured and benched? What was he thinking?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. The show must go on, but that's such a crappy feeling when the show goes on without you and it's still majorly successful and you're a major player.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
A part
of
it.
Yeah. No, it's true. But what I love about that explanation of you just saying that is that I'm also a photographer. So I do some photography. And so I was out in Cole Harbour yesterday at Jackville Plaza, and tapping barrels on the side, and they have their outdoor tables, right? Someone put one of their tables in the center of the plaza, just randomly without chairs, just a table. And so then with my camera, I was able to take the photo of the table facing the torches and the table facing the ocean. And it was kind of like this weird perspective of, what's the story? How did that table end up there? And what's the perspective? Like, were there people having a meal there? Were there ghosts or chess pieces that were like, you create a story of something that no one would even think about.
Or COVID table. It's the COVID table.
It's the COVID table. Like, sit there, that's your bubble, right? You just never know. Yeah. So when you're talking about the athlete on the bench that's injured, that's a perfect example of what are people not looking at, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
And speaking of COVID, like this past year, because I know we were speaking to Johnny because he was doing a lot of work from home and he was enjoying that, but he was saying that you actually were still going into the office, not to get away from your kids necessarily, but I think he said you actually enjoyed doing that because you did have some more freedom for yourself, I guess, or
my mojo is off when I work from home. I don't know what it is. I was trying to figure it out. I still try and figure it out. The days that I work from home, I have really weird days. My whole day is just off. The mornings, even though it's harder, way more work, way more expensive, the mornings that I have to get up and get out of that house, I'm a different person. That drive, even just the drive from South Surrey all the way to Vancouver, getting to work, getting in the building, just little things that I have a different energy, and that energy carries throughout the day for me.
Yes.
It's very strange for me to sit in my house, do the show, and then I'm like, okay, I'm home. I don't know. I feel weird.
Yeah. There's no separation. There's no separation from the feeling of, again, it comes back to purpose, resilience, and routine and regimen, where it's like, I'm up, I'm going, I have a purpose, I'm going in a direction that you're physically driving to get somewhere. You have to be there by a certain time. Okay. I'm here in the office. I'm here in the recording studio. I have people that are listening to me. When you're at home, it kind of diffuses all of that because it's like, oh, it's so casual. Like I'm the only one that's monitoring myself right now. And then you're done, and it's like, where the hell am I? Oh, I'm at home, right? It's
I
so
don't know,
different.
something just, and then I'm not as happy with my performance. So that kind of sits with me all day because my mojo's off with my performance and not being in work. And then I don't like that feeling all day. I don't know. I need to work on, I'm very hard on myself. That's not something that you should bother you all day long, but it just kind of does. But there's some people that love working from home, but I also know there's a lot of people like me that are like, oh, this is very strange. It's a very weird feeling to do this from home.
Yeah.
So what was it like then, as from your perspective of being kind of a voice of the people or a part of our community, right? What was that like when COVID kind of came in and you were going through the motions of, okay, what do we do? What's our strategy? What's our plan of action? How were you feeling in that moment, both as a mother and also as a professional? How was that adjustment period for you? And was there an adjustment period, I wonder?
Yeah, tons. It was such a strange place to be. Unprecedented. None of us had ever been here before, gone through something like this. So it was actually a very human experience. I think all of a sudden we all realized that we're all in the same boat, like, around the world. It really humanized us all, made us realize how small we all really are. It was scary. Actually, it was very scary because, like you said, I have kids. All of a sudden the responsibility that was put on my shoulders as a mother, having these children with me all the time, nonstop, then becoming their teacher. So there was the stress of that I did not enjoy at all. I'm not a teacher. I newfound respect for teachers, for healthcare workers. And then my husband works in healthcare as well. Like, him and his family, they run a long-term care facility, for seniors. So, busy as he's ever been. And then I'm essential. So I'm busy. I'm media. He's busy. It was a very stressful time. Plus making sure that your kids mentally are doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot, but I think for me, it was about, let's just be real. Let's talk about the realness of this all. We don't always have to make it, when I say real, like, it doesn't always have to be heavy.
No.
It was just as simple as saying, we know what you're going through. We understand the frustration. Sometimes it's hard. You watch everybody else, they're sitting there and they're not following the rules, but you're trying to follow the rules, the frustration. That there was a lot of responsibility on us because, like I said, because my husband being in healthcare, myself with my work, and I'm sitting here and I'm trying to tell people what, our health officer is trying to tell us. But then if I don't follow those rules, what do I look like in the community? Right. It's a lot of responsibility to carry on your shoulders. And I still feel that responsibility. It's really hard, but there were some parts that we enjoyed. I mean, it really got you realizing that, do we need to be so busy all the time? Because our lives were a little bit insane. I think I sometimes 2-3 events going on Friday, and then Saturday, by the time the kids activities are done, then we still had our social lives of trying to fit in this, that, and then still Sundays weren't rest days, and it was nonstop go. But do we need to go back to all that? Was this supposed to be a really big message to the universe? And how many of us are going to maybe listen and tap into the message, or how many of us are just going to go right back into what it was? I don't know. A lot of questions. It makes you raise a lot of questions.
A lot of questions as well. And did you find that a lot of people were communicating with you and your co-hosts alike in terms of asking those questions about society and about how are you feeling, or trying to ask questions about what was it like initially to interact with your community from a public eye, I suppose? What was that process like for all of you? Because it would have been interpreted differently as a result, right?
I think it was that responsibility feeling. Of course, I've always kind of known that, okay, you're somewhat of a public figure because we're on the radio, our voice is out there. So we have to be responsible for what we're saying. But to have that type of responsibility in terms of your actions was very extreme. I mean, I've always known I have to have a certain level of behavior in the community, but to that degree where, if you learned a lot about friendships this year too, because everybody has different boundaries, or everybody has different rules for themselves. So for me to constantly have to remind people, no, I can't do that. I really cannot, because if I was to get caught and if someone was to post it, it's a cancel culture right now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility. And, you had a lot of angry people, lots of angry people calling us and saying, who do you think you are? And this isn't real and the masks aren't real.
Really?
Like, we just have to like kind of put out there what the news puts out. Like I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories and things like that. I can't, that's not my show. I'm here to report to you what's happening in the world and what we're being told. From there on forward, if you want to say other things, you can say other things, but I have a responsibility.
Sure.
To report.
For sure. In the end of the day, you're the only one that can control what you say and how you react. And you can't control the flow of what freedom of speech from other people might be like, but you can make the conscious choice of those two other factors, right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this whole past year with pandemic, with the states election, with Trump and all that shit, it's like people feel like they've had more, they feel like their opinion matters more than ever before. So I wonder, like, was it difficult for you to keep your own opinion at bay? Or, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, you have this voice, but yet you don't want to overstep your boundaries. And I'm sure you've been used to that over the years of doing what you're doing, but was it even more difficult this year? Did you find that at all?
Oh, for sure. I mean, for many reasons, I got not in trouble, but I was asked to be a little bit less biased a couple of times when I was referring to Trump and some of the because a few people called and complained, saying that it was for me to speak that way about him. And I was shocked because I was like, really, here in Vancouver? What? You know, Canada?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I called him an idiot or something. And somebody was very upset.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll try not to call him an idiot. But yeah, it was very difficult. There was a lot that happened this year. And you know what? It's interesting because I've always been a huge advocate for anti-racism from the very beginning of time. But I also realized and had a lot of learning to do too, that really have I been doing enough? And it made me realize, no, I'm not, or not that I wasn't doing enough. No, I was actually, no, I've been doing enough, but I realized my core wanted to do more, if that makes sense.
Okay. Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. And, you know, to make those pushes and make those changes on our show to now try and dedicate one break a show towards some form of allyship towards this movement that is not a trend. It's not going anywhere. I don't know what else to call it, but people still are calling it a movement, and maybe it's okay because it's never going to stop moving. It's going to keep on moving. It's going to keep going. But to dedicate one break a show, like that's history making for Top 40 Radio, I think.
Yes.
People don't do that. And that was history making for me as a broadcaster to be able to do that and use this platform for good and for change and for support for the community and education. I think I'm so proud of our show for doing that.
That's beautiful. That is. Yeah. And I'm happy that the people behind the show are willing. They're like, yes, okay, no, we do need this. We will, you know, produce this. We'll put this out there. That speaks a lot for Virgin, I guess, and who you work with, right? So yes, for sure. Like, you know, for now we are 94.5 Virgin Radio, and we had many talks with our bosses, and, you know, even Bell Media, the company that, you know, our umbrella company that we're under, they're very supportive about the diversity initiatives. And when you see that, and when you talk to your bosses and you let your bosses know this is very important, I don't think that this needs to go anywhere. I think we need to keep this conversation going. And trust me, it's not always heavy. It's sometimes it's just personal stories, and yeah, it can get heavy. Other times it's what's happening. It can be anywhere from, you know, the farmers' protest that's happening in India, and us saying we stand because we're humans. If you are a human being that has any compassion and any empathy, you are going to care what's happening in India with these farmers who are trying to do a peaceful protest so that they can just take care of their families. They're not asking to become millionaires, billionaires, anything along that line. They're just saying, please don't rob us. Just don't rob us of us being able to live just a basic life of being able to feed our children, send them to school, and feed ourselves and have a home. And, you know, for those who wonder, why would we even bring that up? Well, do you eat? Yeah.
You know, this is big. Farmers are what give us our food, and they're standing up for farmers all over the world. And like I said, if you're a human, you're going to care. You're going to care. So things like that, you know, but then we also talk about, you know, Amanda Gorman and, you know, how she was like the first poet to perform at the Super Bowl, you know, so it can be as simple as that, but just to showcase and to highlight and to use the platform to say that we are here to support the BIPOC community.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really important because, I mean, again, we're all in this together, which is such a cliche, but it's true. And even though I like the city people, I look white and I look like a man, but gay, Jewish, severe mental health disabilities, learning disabilities, all these other complexes that we can't see on the inside of a human being, right? Same with Rachel, not taking words out of her mouth, but like severe mental health and anxiety, and then also female, Jewish. But people could look at us with the naked eye and think, oh yeah, you're just some typical heteronormative, cisgendered so-and-so. And that's not the case. So to have a platform to talk about everything, including the BIPOC community and the allies and the people that want to make sure that we're all equal and that we're all empowered to be who we need to be, who we want to be, it's a big responsibility. And the fact you can have the platform you have so hard, so effortfully created, and with the people that are sharing that with you, it's a huge gift. And I appreciate that you've been able to stick through it, and that your colleagues have been able to stick through it with you too, because it's a whole collaboration.
Oh, for sure. Collaboration. And it's been amazing to get all these emails of people who just say thank you, that we're bringing certain things to light that they don't normally hear on a top 40 station. You know, whether it's someone from, you know, the Indigenous community who will call up and say, thank you so much for telling the other side of the story of what that was, and to just humanize it and not make it such a news report, and just say, like, you know, this is sad and this needs to stop happening. We need to stop the discrimination. We're telling these stories so people know that that we are allies. And I say to my co-hosts who are white, all the time, that it's really interesting that I need their voice very badly, because as a person of color, if someone already has a racist undertone to them, and if I'm saying something, it's not going to resonate with them the same way as a person that's not part of the BIPOC community is going to say it. They're more willing to listen, right? So that's why it's so important for the BIPOC community to have allies that are non-BIPOC, because we need you to spread the message. Let us fight the fight, right? Because our energy is so used up fighting the fight, and we've been fighting it, you know, from the moment we've been born. So that we need the allies to spread the message, or even, like, it's just called being like a racism interrupter. We need you to be the interrupter, so that if someone is saying something uncomfortable, don't let them think it's okay. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be aggressive. All it is you saying, what you said makes me uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's being a racism interrupter, to let someone know that that is not okay. That's not okay with me. Or I really don't understand what you're trying to say there. Things like that, where you can make a difference. And just, it's like I said, it doesn't have to be aggressive, because not everybody does well that way. They can just, like, you know, sink back into their shell.
Yeah.
It's about just giving someone something to think about, because believe it or not, it's still happening all the time. My husband thinks I'm so naive, because I'm always so surprised when, you know, there's such acts of racism out there. But
oh my God, that's interesting you say that, because my husband is the same way. And I'll say to him, like, for example, even when, you know, people were storming the Capitol in Washington, and how there were shirts with people that were wearing shirts that said, you know, 3 million, not, they didn't say 3 million Jews wasn't enough, or 6 million, excuse me. But in that respect, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, people, I was shocked. I'm like, people still wear that shit? There's still neo-Nazis out there? Like, what? Like, what?
It blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind.
My husband said the same thing. Like, he's like, I'm not surprised. Like, they're always, I think not to bring it to Trump, but you know, he does basically, he kind of made it okay again for those people to come out of the shadows, I guess, so to speak, and have their voice. So anyway, I'm same as you. Like maybe I'm naive. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've got that bleeding heart, and I don't want to believe that that's actually happening still. So and
it's funny. Like, I don't know. I kind of preferred it when they were hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
And other people are like, again, that's so naive. Like, why would you want them hiding? Aren't you happy that you now know? And I'm like, actually, no, because it just saddens me. I think I liked it better when they were in fear and they at least knew to keep it in their house. Because now those people aren't hiding in the shadows. They're pulling more people out of there. Maybe it goes back to like what we said, like I like routine and I like discipline. Be afraid to be a racist. I'd rather you be afraid than think, well, no, I want to be out on the streets and talk about white supremacy.
Right, exactly. No, for sure. And again, even coming back to like homophobia, right? So I mean, that's so universal regardless of creed, but just your sexual preferences, and how sometimes for some people that does express in their personality and their carriage or their persona, and some it doesn't at all. But I mean, like, even when we were talking with Johnny, right, and about how he and myself were both expressive people and we're a little bit awkward, a little bit different, you know, you can kind of tell there's a story behind that, even if you're not quite sure what it is. You know, they're not just like some white dude, like there's something different. And I live in like just adjacent to Yaletown, because I don't really like Yaletown, but I live adjacent to it. And like walking through with my partner and seeing the looks that I get, seeing the fact that, you know, we're a biracial couple, like just seeing things like that. And I'm thinking, what the fuck's your problem? It's 2021. You know, like even that I'm naive about. And I think I'm just happy. I'm just connected. Like, we're not doing anything violent. We're not doing anything like that's in others' faces. We're just holding hands.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Like, what is wrong with that? And like, so we
just mind your own business. Why do you care?
I know. And we were at the Cole Harbor seawall, sitting on a bench and looking out at the seaplanes. And I saw a couple come by, and they were of minority. They were a heterosexual couple, probably in their 50s, I would say. That's my rough estimation. And the woman looked at me with a stink eye. And so I actually looked back at her, and I was like, like, I literally was like, if you're going to do that, do it. But do not expect me to just either ignore it. I'm going to interrupt your homophobia and potentially racism on the fact that you're seeing something that is so modern in our community. Like, what is your problem? Like, why would you be so focused on something like that when everything around us right now is so much more astronomical in terms of how it's affecting our society?
Yeah, or I just want to be like, how bored are you in your life that you have the energy for so much hatred?
Yes.
Because that takes up so much energy, doesn't it? To actually, I don't know. I'm so focused on other things. I don't honestly. I think from a very young age, for some reason, there's been a little fire inside of me to advocate for those who I feel just couldn't advocate for themselves. Not sure where it comes from or how. Maybe, like I said, maybe it is because of some of the traumatic racism experiences. But from a very young age, it's just been to stand up for people who used to get made fun of for ridiculous things, just being a little bit different. At that time, it's what people, I don't know why. And kids are so mean. They wanted to make fun of anything that was slightly different or slightly not fitting into what their box was, whatever that box is. Like, who even decided who's making the box and what shape the box is going to be? But it was made. I grew up with those boxes around me all the time, and I had a very hard time fitting in them.
Which is why we were going to actually, me and Rachel both wanted to ask you a little bit with the time that we have together still about your upbringing, because you hinted and talked a little bit about it, but are you comfortable sharing with us just a little bit more about like Nira as a child and living in the household you grew up in and then the community around you? Like, what was it like being in elementary or high school? Moving to the mainland, like to Vancouver, and then experiencing that. Like, I'm curious to know if there's any like really highlighted moments that really come to you when we prompt you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, my parents, they were immigrants and they came from India, from Punjab, and came with $10 in their pocket.
Okay.
And that was it. And so you start from scratch and you work hard. And that's kind of what they taught me. You have to work hard. My parents were into trying to be as Canadian as possible, but not losing our culture at the same time. You know what I mean? So it was really hard to kind of be both. It was a very interesting time because their focus, even though they had children, was still to try and get their family out of India and bring as many family members to Canada as possible. That's just what our Indian families do. My parents were both eldest on each side of the family, so they had a lot of responsibility. So I honestly feel that my brother and I were neglected quite a bit growing up. I had a lot of responsibility considering I was almost 7 years older than my brother. So I really was more of a parent figure to him because my parents, all they did was work and try and make sure that their family was getting over here. But I went to lots of counseling for that kind of stuff too. So it was just, come on, parents, I talk a lot about breaking those cycles now with my children. And I need to make sure my children understand that they are the priority, because my brother and I questioned that a lot growing up. Not that my parents did not love us. It's just, they were taught a different way of showing love.
Yes.
And it's really hard when you're the eldest in the Indian family, you're in Canada, and the pressures that are put on you for what is expected of you, from the family. And so grew up with, I loved my childhood at the same time, but I grew up with a lot of racism at the same time. But I was that person in high school that I think I said what I felt. I stood up for what I believed in, and the racism or whatever it was, the confusion of, what exactly am I, being an Indian, Canadian, Indian, going to bed at night, wishing that I'd wake up white with blue eyes and blonde hair. Those wishes are all there. Don't get me wrong. But it just provided this resilience inside of me that was I need to succeed. That whole thing, I need to prove myself constantly because I was trying to belong. All I wanted to do was belong. You're trying so hard to belong that you neglect the little privileges that are constantly around you, or the white allergies, or, the little things, comments that are constantly being said around you. You would laugh them off if they weren't too offensive, but when they were offensive, you would say something. But I mean, I was valedictorian at my high school, and it wasn't, at my high school, you didn't become valedictorian based on your grades. You became valedictorian because you were voted in as valedictorian.
Yes.
So I was that person that was friends with everybody. No, I had my core, and I had my close friends, but I was that person that talked to everyone. I was that person that would say hello. I was that person that validated your existence in high school. That was me. Especially for the people that I knew would maybe get razzed on a little bit or might get made fun of. I was that would go up and say, hey, how's it going? How are you? What's going on? You know what I mean?
I do. That was me.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that I'm the most proud of from high school is just knowing that everybody deserves a sense of validation. And people feel alone. You look back and nobody wants to feel alone. There's a difference between being lonely and being lonely, right? A lonely is like what we're craving right now because we're never alone now. Everybody's around us because of the pandemic in our homes. We never have alone time. But at that time, you can sense when there's people who are lonely. And then it was very interesting as I moved to the mainland right after high school, going to university. I was so excited to see so many Indian people. It's not like that where I grew up, right? And I was like, oh yeah, my people, my people, these are my people.
Right.
But I didn't belong with my people either because I was a little bit too white for my brown friends.
Right. Okay.
They all grew up together, and I understand why they grew up together and were comfortable with each other, because I had to constantly lie to my non-Indian friends, my non-BIPOC friends growing up, because I wasn't allowed to date. We had a lot of cultural things that I thought were weird, this and that. So I was never as honest with them, right? Whereas my counterparts here, they found it like I can understand why Indian people gravitated towards Indian people. You didn't have to explain why you weren't allowed to date. You didn't have to explain to your Indian boys, yeah, like I'll go out with you, but we can't, your parents can't know, my parents can't know. We can never be caught holding hands. You have to drop me off, not at my house, down the street. I'll walk, like things like that. You didn't have to explain. Whereas I couldn't explain that to the white boys I grew up with. Right.
Right.
So I wasn't, then I wasn't brown enough for some of my Indian friends here, which was really funny. And then I started just gravitating to small town people. Like it's a small town people all kind of got each other and understood each other. So that's where majority of my closest friendships first came from when I moved here from university, was other small town people. And I don't know, I'm not saying this to be offensive, but we just had there was a certain lightness about us from small towns. We were just a little bit happier. We were a little bit more outgoing. We're a little bit more friendlier. We wanted to have those little conversations. We were those, when you get in an elevator, good morning, how are you people?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I live in Vernon, so I live in the Okanagan. So when we moved from Vancouver, and that was something that I craved and missed so much. I adore living in a smaller town. I lived my whole life in Vancouver, but what you're saying right now just really resonates with me, because I feel like there is just more, just that sense of wanting to connect with people and not as many agendas.
Yes.
Right. So
it's made fun of for being too nice, because I used to work at Bootlegger in Nanaimo, and I transferred to the Metrotown Bootlegger.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because I was close to school, because I went to SFU, and I remember just, people my age just thought I was too nice. I was too nice for them.
What's wrong with her?
Yeah.
She's nice, smiles, she talks.
Yeah.
She doesn't have like
she's human.
Like what is like RBF, right? That was the thing.
Yeah.
Like they just got a name recently, but it was always a thing. Like you'd look at certain girls and be like, why do they always have that face on? Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's crazy how our society and our generations evolve, or how they actually, in some ways, recede. Like they kind of regress in some ways too, you know?
There's, again, one word that you said that has just been such a common thread with our guests lately is resilience. The past few, it's just, there is such a, it's really at the core, I think, of you, which is beautiful. Like maybe it's something you learned from your parents, probably, coming over and not having much and doing as much as they could with this little amount that they had. And just going going through what you've been through. But that thread of resilience is huge. And if we can, use that thread to our advantage to be resilient and then lift other people up. I mean, that's the whole point, is it not? I mean, a lot of people don't have that, but anyway, just an observation about that word.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I was 3 on a playground, and I don't know, I think another little girl called me some racist names or something, and like it was right across the street from my house, and my aunt was here, and she was kind of just like down by the fence watching while I was playing. And this girl, I think she pulled my hair, and she like threw rocks at me, like the gravel, those little rocks. So they're very dusty too. Remember, it's not just rocks, like they're also dusty.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so I walked back to my aunt, and she was like, what just happened there? And I told her, like, she was mean to me. She called me these names, and then she threw rocks at me. So I was like, I was almost 4. And told me to turn right back around, go back to that girl, and now you're gonna not saying this is right, but she did it first. She's like, you're gonna now pull her off that swing with her hair and yank her to the ground, and you're gonna throw rocks right back at her. And I was like, what? But I did it. But I think that was a major learning moment for me too, that by allowing her to get away with that, me just walking away crying, I let her believe that behavior was okay. And to think she can then do that to other people. And my aunt didn't want to come do it. She's like, I could go over and say something, but no, you're going to go over there. And I did. I yanked her right off that swing. I threw her to the ground, and I threw rocks at her. And I was like, okay, I'm setting the precedent here. And she never bothered me again. Like it was right. So not that is the answer, but I had an issue with my son when he was in preschool, and couldn't believe this. The preschool teachers they had a conversation with me saying that he's too nice, my son. And they were like, this boy is very rude and he's a little bit of a bullying class. And, he actually like punched your son and your son didn't do anything. Like he just turned around and do anything. And so I had to teach my son. I'm like, I'm not saying you do it first, but if you have I have given you permission. If that boy touches you again, you have every right to kick him right back, punch him right back, pull his hair right back. And I will not be upset with you because you need to defend yourself. In these.
That's great.
So I like I said, not everybody would agree with me and that's okay. But I needed to set that precedent, that stage for myself. And my aunt knew I had to because she also was a victim of racism, being visible minority woman in Canada. She saw it. So she's like, if you don't set this up for yourself now, you're just letting everyone know that that's how they can treat you.
Yeah.
Correct. Well said. And perfect examples given in all sides of the story too. I mean, I can only imagine that. And with that being said, in terms of the kind of wrapping up our time together, we have a couple more things we would love to connect with you about. And one thing you mentioned is, again, your children. And so you have a beautiful husband named Gary. Is that correct?
That's right.
And then you have 3 children as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I have 2 boys and a girl. Shay, he is 10. Avi, he's almost 8. He's a boy. And then my youngest, she's a girl. And she is 3. So it's been a really busy household. And even like these days, I've even been kind of questioning, like even saying that kind of stuff. Like, even saying the 2 boys and a girl thing. I've been having lots of conversations with my kids about this kind of stuff too. Like, because it's such an interesting world right now. We're trying to figure so much out, and I'm trying, I don't know the answers at all, but I try to make sure I also have a conversation with my boys, especially because they're older, about how we don't focus too much on about gender and the stereotypes that should be going around gender.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But even I'm sometimes doing I'm like, oh, he's a boy. Why am I saying that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, because it's I have 2 boys and a girl, but is that it's interesting even saying that. I wonder if someone might find that offensive today,
It depends how sensitive someone is, right? Because some people could say, well, no, they have 3 children. And their names are, but then someone could also be offended by that, even because it's like, well, why are you sidestepping the fact that you are saying I'm not male or female, because those are my pronouns, right? Like, you could get in so much psychological confusion. And so it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
I think it all comes down to intention. If somebody can read or feel your intention, or they know that you're intending something to be or then because it is hard, there is such a fine line between all these things. So as we're all learning and kind of getting rid of these things that have been so deeply ingrained in us from even, like, I just see Dr. Seuss behind you. Like, I mean, there's all these things that are becoming part of cancel culture because of I don't know. I can't remember what the whole Dr. Seuss. That's a whole other topic of conversation.
That's like old school Dr. Seuss and the innuendos, possibly. But those books, they have now decided like they're not going to be continuing. Even his own, Dr. Seuss company has come out with that stuff. But you do have to remember, not everything he said or did or wrote had that undertone. It's very old. You have to remember, it's very old. If we start erasing everything, then what are we learning from in terms of what not to do? As you guys brought up, the Holocaust, right? Imagine if people are like, we're just going to erase it.
No, exactly.
You erase it. That's not helping you. We need to see it sometimes. We need to hear about it. We need to learn from it. If we don't learn from it, then what is it that we're even trying to change? It's confusing.
Exactly. It's totally confusing, right? And so I think what's a great way to say about our time together in this dialogue is that we never really know what's going to be happening in the next day. But if we at least can do our part in each moment, and to know that we are being as authentic and as resilient in our purpose, that is really what makes the difference in the day that follows us tomorrow, if we're given the gift to live to tomorrow, right?
Exactly. And constantly, as long as you're mind is in that ideology of learning and acceptance, that's what you need. And like you said, it's coming from a good place. So even when I'm confused and I may say something wrong, I will say I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to learn because I'm trying to make it better for everyone.
Yes. And one of the things phrases that I've been saying over the last little while that was passed to me by someone where I work is help me understand. Right? Just like simple, help me understand more about this. How can I be a better service? Or what is it that I can learn or understand more to help be a greater presence, perhaps, even if it's listening, being educated, being open, receptive to being maybe ignorant without meaning to be ignorant. Right? Yeah.
And not to let the ego get in the way, because I think even in yoga, I believe even those that are considered masters would not even consider, like those actual masters wouldn't consider themselves a master, because they would always consider that they're learning. They're always learning. They're going to be till the day their physical body leaves this earth or in the ground. I mean, it's so, well,
it's really funny. It's not funny, actually. I'm reading more about, appropriation of cultures, and yoga came up in it because yoga is actually a very ancient Middle East, like it's Asian, Indian yogis from back in the day, like thousands upon thousands of years old.
Yes.
And, yogis have come forward during the movement and said, if you're a racist, you're not invited to do yoga, like straight up, because we believe in equality. We believe in a higher being. We believe in spirituality. We believe in chakra connection. And if you are a racist, that is not our belief system. So we prefer that you don't try and do yoga. You don't go to any yoga studios, because yoga does not encompass racism.
No. Yes. Well said.
Exercise.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That's the story of my brand. No.
Yes.
It's connection to yourself.
Yes. Higher being.
Exactly. And I know that when we were reading about you're very spiritual and stuff, like I'm very spiritual in the sense of like connection. I don't teach yoga for asana ever. I teach it because I have to, in the sense of being a studio teacher. But every time I go into those ways of speaking, it comes from the richness and the ethics that I can take and apply into tangible life lessons. And then letting people be distracted in their physical body, so then they can kind of walk out and think, something else happened there. Why did I not get that? Right? I mean, it's just real life. So one thing we want to ask you, because we want to give you the ability to, it's funny, Rachel always like to plug yourself in a sense, but we want to hear about your fundraising and what you're doing now, and how can we support and broadcast what you're doing so we can share it with the community.
Yeah, so I'm trying to help out with this amazing cause with Options Community Services. They're this local organization that gives back to the community, and they are helping to build this multi-million-dollar affordable housing project. And this housing project is going to be in Surrey. And our goal for Options Community Services 50th anniversary, what they've done is they've asked 50 women in the community to come together and help raise $1.5 million towards this multi-million-dollar affordable housing project. Okay. So I am one of the 50 women, and my goal is to raise $25,000. And that money is all going towards this affordable housing project. And if you think about it, it's 100 units, 70 units are going to be set at an affordable housing price. So think of something like $375 a month. And this is going to help those who, let's say, refugees who come to the country and had to flee these horrible, maybe just criminal land, or acts of terrorism, and they've had to leave these countries where they can't sustain their family in a healthy environment, and come to this country with absolutely nothing in their pockets, and they need a place to stay. Or women who are here in our Lower Mainland fleeing domestic violence and have to leave in the middle of the night and have nothing to their name, don't have, any bank account information, don't have even a suitcase full of clothing. Think about kids who went through the foster care program, and maybe, the program somehow just didn't work for them, and they just need someone to give them a chance. Those who have struggled with mental illness and addiction issues, who finally are like, okay, I'm in a place where I think I can get up on my 2 feet, but I just need a little bit of help to get started. So Options Community Services is all about helping people in the community. And yeah, so if you go to womenofoptions.ca, there's 50 of us women. And if you would like, you can choose any woman, but I'm also on that list. And if you click, you can make a small little donation, and it all goes towards this affordable housing project. And you get a tax receipt, of course. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Amazing.
Amazing. I was just writing some of that down. I mean, I'll listen to this episode afterwards as well. But what I'd like to do is we'll put it in our link tree as well, connect it to our Instagram page so that people can actually easily go and connect with this. And
that'd be great. Thank you.
Of course. Of course. And is there anything else that you wanted to share? Anything else that you want people to be aware of, whether if it's to your own name or your own brand?
You know, right now, I think for me, it's kind of just, I'm trying to figure out what message I want out there, or what people might think or feel when, you know, they see my face or hear my name. And that's one of the things that I've really been thinking about this year. So for me, it's just, I think, what can I do to kind of give back? And for some reason, that's really been an important message for me this year. And the only thing I would really say is, if I can influence you in any way to just do a few more acts of kindness, or just have kindness in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, in your day, in your moments, because we all have rough days. Trust me, I know, frustrating days. So all of that is norm, but I'm just saying to really encompass that emotion of kindness is all I'm kind of asking these days. And I'm trying to even do that for myself. And a lot of the kindness even needs to come to yourself first, actually. Maybe that's what it is. If you can show yourself some kindness, you're definitely going to want to show it to others. Yeah. So just think about those kinds of things, because this is a very interesting time that we're all going through together. And it's been a rough one for a lot of us for many different reasons, you know, so we just need to give each other a little bit more kindness, a little bit more of that understanding. I think that's what's kind of lacking in the world these days.
Well, and my big takeaway is I've not heard that terminology of a racism interrupter. And I like that. So I feel like if anyone wants to be an ally in any sense, then that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'll be honest, when I do it, I end up having to do it quite often when I am being a racism interrupter. It is hard. It's really hard. And I try not to do it in an aggressive way. You can see the discomfort from the other party. You really can. And how much they want you to back down, or to kind of let them know that, well, no, but it's okay. You know, but I've really changed my tone this year with a lot of the interrupting that I've been doing, to let them know, because a few situations like, oh, it looks like I kind of may have overstepped. And I'm like, not kind of, you actually completely overstepped.
Right.
And you actually can't talk like that. You can't say those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really hard for people to accept that. Right. Or if that's too much, you can even say like that. You can't say those things around me. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay.
Fair.
It's good advice. That's great advice. He wrote me a little note. I'm like, oh yeah, there's one more question. Last question, our goofy question, just to end it on maybe a little bit of a lighter note, is if you were a juice, what would you be and why? That's our silly last question of our talk.
Probably a green juice. I'm obsessed with green juices. And also because I can't just pick one. I'm one of those always complicated creatures. You know, you got to mix in a whole bunch of little things in there. Can't just pick one juice. It'll have to have like the cucumber and then the celery and then maybe parsley, maybe some cilantro and then pineapple to give it at least a little bit of that like little kick or something. But, and then I just know, because I'm good for you.
You definitely are.
Yes.
Yeah, it might make you cringe a little bit, but you know I'm good for you.
I love it. No, seriously. And thank you for gracing us with your time and being so responsible with your time as well in terms of showing up for us and for us to be able to show up for you, you know, like we have to show up together and have some community to connect. And I really am grateful that we can have this time together.
Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of your podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And when we get everything's uploaded, I will email you links and we can share away and good luck on the fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So have an awesome day. And
thanks, guys. Have a good one. Nira. Enjoy your day. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.